everybody. Thank you for coming to the May meeting of the Library Marketing Book Club. I'm so happy that you're all here. So this month we read Think Again by Adam Grant. Oh man, it is a bummer because I had my other computer set up with Zoom and I had like pre-set polls, but those are obviously all gone now because I don't see them here. So bummer. But anyway, so Think Again by Adam Grant. Not completely a marketing book, but we've done some of those, many of those before, and it's pretty cool. There's definitely some stuff you can use in here I saw, and some real neat examples. So let's just see. I know not everybody always has a chance to read the book, and that's okay. We'll go through some of it today, and we'll just keep talking about library marketing too. So that's what this is all about. So anybody have any initial thoughts on this book?
Well, I tried to request the book about the smoke jumpers, and of course, I'm on a waiting list.
Oh, too bad. Oh, that was a very interesting story, though.
Yeah.
I watched some videos on it because I think there was like maybe a 2020 or something on it. And I think I posted something. And really cool story. That was a great hook to get you in. Maybe you'll have it soon. What other thoughts does anybody have about this book? Just initially, would you think good, bad, different?
I really resonated with the explanation of how when we try to defend our position, we become either a preacher, prosecutor, or politician. It was like, well, that was quite accurate.
Yeah, it was very good. It was that was another great one to kind of get you right into it. That was very interesting, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. But yeah, that was a cool point. That was very valid. Anybody else? What anybody else have about the book?
I didn't quite finish it. I've got
Okay,
2 hours left on the audiobook.
Yeah.
And right now I can't find my notes. So
Oh, no.
I'm getting a little like lost. So as you're talking about things, I'm like, yes, I do remember that.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. And I've already started like seeing myself like implementing some of the things like like sticking with one point, and like adding more points in kind of muddles your efforts. And
that was a very cool one.
And our library's mission is inspiring lifelong learning, and so I just loved that there's all of this information about lifelong learners. And so I do look forward to finishing it and then seeing if there are things there that we can apply to our customer base.
Go ahead, Anna. Yeah.
Oh, just encouraging how to encourage people to engage more, or right, if we're inspiring lifelong learning, then having tips on like or information on lifelong learners seems so valuable too.
Yeah, it was really neat. Yeah, there definitely is a lot of that throughout the book, and in that last part of the book, there's a bunch of it too. The one that you mentioned was about more than one idea, and there was a really good example kind of later on of that where they thought if one thing was good to persuade people, two things would be even better, and then it turned out that it was even worse. So so people don't really just adding more and more arguments to something is not always the right way. So there was a lot of cool stuff about that too. So Stephanie, hey.
I really liked kind of the discussions of like in-group, out-group, and how quickly that can poison our ability to think clearly. I've been having a lot of discussions, as I'm sure many of us have, about why libraries don't get rid of books. And I work in a fairly large town, small city, but I'm from a very, very small town. And I've been working with some of the libraries there, and kind of having conversations with them and their boards about why these policies exist, and having to approach it without activating oh, but you're one of those liberal people from the city. Because it's a real, I mean, that's a real instant, like, that's a real Yankees Red Sox kind of moment.
Yeah. Yes, very much. That's a good way. I was having a hard time really. I mean, I like the Yankees Red Sox. I mean, I thought it was interesting, the Yankees Red Sox thing. I grew up in New York, not New York City, but New York State, and remember much about the Yankees and Red Sox rivalries, of course. But yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it. It's like, yeah, we're looking at it as just like that other side is wrong, that other side sucks, and but there's a lot more to it than that. And so, yeah, there was a bunch of stuff in the book that was very useful, very, very interesting to read. So, yeah, so let's just walk through the book and we'll see, a couple, I'll hit on a couple things that I picked out that I thought were interesting, and anything else that comes to mind. So, yeah, the basic premise of the book, if you haven't had a chance to read it, is that there's value in rethinking things. The opening story is about these smoke jumpers who jumped into a fire area, and with nobody knew about what this one guy did. There was no pre-training for it. There was no preconceived idea about this, but he did something that would come to be called creating an escape fire. He burned up an area of the ground so that there was no more fuel for the fire to consume, and the fire burned around him but didn't burn him. So he was like the only one, or one of maybe two people, I think, that survived that particular incident. So, it was just him in the moment, just kind of looking around, looking at what goes on, and just thinking a little differently. So really interesting. And then the other main thing about the book that kind of kicks it off is this idea of preacher, prosecutor, politician, and scientist. So, and I think when you go through this, and I'd love to hear anybody else who has experienced this, and you hear these things, you're like, oh yeah, I can see when either I did that or somebody else did that. So preachers, their sacred beliefs are in jeopardy. They deliver sermons to promote ideals. So when when you feel like your ideas are threatened, instead of listening, or you might just start going into a sermon to say, this is why it's right, and this is why we should do this, and these are my ideals, and this is why it's important. Prosecutors, when you see a flaw in somebody's reasoning and you start an argument to prove them wrong, your goal is winning your case. And then politician is seeking to win over an audience. You're campaigning, you're lobbying for approval. So, these are some natural modes that we slip into, and they each have their own kind of pitfalls. So, Stephanie, like you're saying, and some of these conversations about, books and banning and getting rid of and those kind of things, people are going into those modes. You can see people saying, oh, well, this is what I believe, and I think you should get rid of it, and I think you're threatening our children, and and looking for arguments in cases, and looking to just try and win over people. But, the real value is in being a scientist and searching for the truth, running experiments to test hypotheses, and you're trying to discover knowledge. So that's, what kind of the basic sort of groundwork of the book is. Don't get stuck in these preacher, prosecutor, politician modes. If you can, look at things more like a scientist, which is not unlike a lot of other books that we've read, where they, talk about experiments and looking for truth, and not just trying to do things. I do not believe this is Adam Hates Everything, Adam. I think that's a different Adam, Lisa, but very entertaining Adam. This Adam, not quite as funny as that Adam, in my opinion, but yeah. And
Adam Hates Everything. Is that the same as Adam Ruins Everything?
Yeah, Adam Ruins Everything. Yeah,
Adam Conover.
Adam Conover. Yes, different Adam. Yes, right. Yeah. Yeah, a little different Adam, a different world that he lives in. But pretty interesting. points. So yeah, and Erica, about being a scientist where we are as librarians. Yeah. So so that fits because librarians are also searching for the truth. And that's what libraries are about, is more about what's, what is the answer, what's the solution, and not really just looking to try and proselytize. And that's something that we probably shouldn't get into too deep of a discussion of banning books, though it is something that I'm certain now affects all of us in different ways. But that's a big challenge. That when you are encountering these kind of things, how is your library responding to it? Are you the one? Are you trying to fight back? Are you trying to preach your own library ideals, or are you looking to give people access so that they can make their own decisions? So it's an interesting thing to be in the middle of this, and kind of interesting to see. But so one thing that he talked about that I thought was the BlackBerry. So how many people had Blackberries? Didn't anybody have? No Blackberries. No, Mary, I had a BlackBerry. Yes. I loved my BlackBerry. I thought it was very cool. But yeah, so if you didn't have a BlackBerry, or weren't around when Blackberries were a big thing, they were a pretty huge deal. And yeah, Tammy still missed the keyboard. I know. Yeah, it was great having a little keyboard like that. But BlackBerry, it was huge. It was an absolutely enormous company that you just heard everything about. BlackBerry and RIM BlackBerry, and it was a Canadian company, and it was a huge superpower. But they just refused to believe that people would type on a screen. They thought that the internet browser would drain wireless networks or drain the battery and put strain on wireless networks. And unfortunately, they held on to it way too long. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to see. Does anybody have we can expose it here. Anything that their library is holding on to way too long because they refuse to believe in change? Is that something that anybody has encountered or tried to do anything differently?
We're discussing whether or not to completely remove our CD collection.
Oh yes, big
We
one.
have weeded it down to anything that has not searched since 2018. And it is literally 18 discs.
Wow. That's music CDs?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still have books on CD or music?
There's a few that are out in the stacks. They aren't pulled out separate,
okay.
But not many. We buy the digital download.
Yeah. 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 I think the other one, but this one maybe not in the same, is something that, how many still have DVDs? And maybe, I don't know. Yeah, still DVDs.
Yeah.
And DVDs still have some popularity, but I don't know. It seems like they're going away too. I mean, how many DVD players do people have left? And computers have not really had discs in them for a long time. So yeah,
we still have microfiche.
Oh yeah, we still have microfiche. Yeah,
I mean, there are some things that the media is not available in any other format.
Yeah, well, that's true.
We have purged every VHS tape from the building, however.
Yeah. Yeah, VHS. Yes. I think that finally ended. Yeah. But yeah, DVDs still big circulators. Okay. Yeah. And see, this is the thing. Yes. I don't have kids. So yes, kids. Yeah. I guess kids, it's still a great way to put a DVD. And you still get VHS requests, Carrie. That's that's wild. That's crazy. That seems crazy. Maybe not. I won't, assume, but that's very interesting. Yeah, one of the challenges that we have on fax machines. Oh my gosh, yes, fax machines. We get requests all the time for fax machines, and same thing. Yeah, this is one of those things. I think this is probably the thing, Tammy. This probably is very well aligned with this BlackBerry idea of we can't have fax machines, we can't do anything for faxing. There's all kind of problems with faxing, and we just refuse to. It just, to me, maybe, again, I'm not in tech, but to me, we have copy machines that scan and copy, and I imagine it's probably a matter of hooking them up to some sort of, well, actually, they're already hooked up to a network, because you have to put money on your account, at least the ones here. So it's wild that's still resistance, that people still resist putting those faxes. It's kind of wild that places still require a fax, but I guess, they can do it. But yeah, we get the requests all the time. You do provide fax services, Carrie. Is it popular? Outbound only, yeah. Is it popular? I would imagine. Yeah, because it's free. Right? Is it free, or do you charge?
Let me see if my will stay stable enough. It's $1 a page, free cover page, and then $1 a page.
Okay, well, but at least it's convenient. So yeah, you charge too, Kelly. Yeah. Well, that would be another thing that might sell it, is charging. Yeah, dozens a week. Yeah. People still need to fax a lot. For us though, it's been one that we've had machines that are certainly capable of, but it seems that there's some more of a philosophical, we don't provide fax services, or it hasn't been a priority. But every time we talk to folks in the branches, that's what the question they're still getting, is fax services. So maybe we need to rethink, how we're doing that, and not just be stubborn. But yeah, and then he talks about Steve Jobs, the data line. Yeah, we had some data line things too, but now I think it's I think even those issues probably have. We'll see. I don't know. I'm curious. I ask every couple months, our tech folks, like, hey, how about that faxing? Yeah, VoIP. Our whole system is VoIP, so it should work now. So Steve Jobs resisted, even he resisted turning the iPod into an iPhone, but his engineers persuaded him to think back over it. And now we know that the iPhone totally blew away the BlackBerry and has really revolutionized the entire industry. So yeah, so it was a good example of, not necessarily resisting what goes on. And let's see. So there was another thing, and I think this is something that in the book, there was something about armchair quarterbacks. The next section kind of talked about armchair quarterbacks and imposter syndrome. And it's pretty interesting. There was a whole case in there about a woman who ran for prime minister, I think, president of Iceland, and how she did really well. And it was basically because she was not overconfident. So I know that sometimes some of us, I certainly have had my moments where I've thought of imposter syndrome, but it was kind of, I thought, this was kind of refreshing in that, imposter syndrome is not necessarily a bad thing, something to be really worried about, because it generally means that it would be great to have more confidence, because that is very helpful, but sometimes that can really, really, really get in your way. We just had a mayoral election here in Jacksonville, and first female mayor of Jacksonville ever. And if you look at her versus her other candidate, it was very similar to this case where, he was highly confident. He had a lot of backing. He had outspent her in advertising. But she really ran a great campaign, really ran a very, ultimately a very clean campaign. And And I don't think a lot of people expected that she would win, but she did. And so, so it's really says something about that, about confidence versus competence. And so that was something else. Anybody else, anything ring true in that section, if you remember it, about imposter syndrome or armchair quarterbacking, and the Dunning-Kruger effect? The difference between stress, distress, and eustress. I don't know what that is. What is that, Carrie? I'm not familiar.
Distress causes your body to go into like negative effects, but you can utilize the eustress to overcome it. You can kind of like get yourself to get into an excited way to face your challenge there. And I think that's probably what the presidential candidate from Iceland did, was she looked at it more as a challenge and used the stress that she was feeling there as a way to encourage herself, instead of as a way to, oh, well, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Which I'm sure we see happen sometimes. Yeah, Lisa, like, maybe like reframing. It's kind of, looking at it instead of a stressful situation as something that beats you down. It can energize you. A lot of people use that in public speaking. Just try and think of, just get yourself psyched up for it, and use the stress to create energy and tension that makes it exciting. So that's pretty cool, Carrie. Yeah, thanks for explaining that. So that was kind of where he went. And then I'm trying to see, I have the book up here, which is why I'm looking over here. So the next thing he talked about, which was, it was an interesting, and it was kind of short. It was the joy of being wrong. So, so this I thought was pretty cool. He had a big thinker, Daniel Kahneman, psychologist, and during a speech realized that he was wrong. And I thought that was really cool that he was excited about being wrong, because now he knows, now that you know that you're wrong, you're less wrong than before. I thought that was so, did anybody else? I thought that was really cool about being, well, I was wrong about this, but now that I know that I'm wrong about that, I won't have to worry about being wrong about that again, and get you more to the truth. So, so that was an interesting, thing. And then he went into, speaking of political, he went into forecasting the 2016 election, or was it 2016 election, and how everybody was forecasting that Donald Trump would not win. But a lot of that was more, people did not want Donald Trump to win. So they wanted to try and make the facts there. So, an interesting way of explaining how that kind of bias, desirability bias, can change how you do things. So, but, so accepting the fact that you're going to be wrong, or looking to something and really looking at the facts and information, and not getting hung up on what you want the outcome to be, because that can ruin your your forecast. So forecasting competitions, I thought the same thing, Gary. And I was wondering, like, how do you practice at forecasting? I was very curious as to, what do you do to practice and get better at forecasting? I mean, I guess, forecast small races, and you would think it's just an offshoot of gambling, just trying to pick who's going to win. Yeah. And how many years does it take to win? Yeah, it seemed like kind of a big thing. So, but the forecasting, that was an interesting thing.
Was there also something?
Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
Was there also something about the joy of being wrong being now an opportunity to learn something, or learn more? like seeing it as a, I don't know, maybe the scientist thinking, or
Yeah, like a learning opportunity. Yeah. So now so now that you know that you're wrong, that gives you an opportunity to learn more about something that you might not have even been exposed to because you thought you were. And yeah, there was the example of the one scientist who, maybe this wasn't exactly that, but this is the example of one scientist who just made a big mistake in his analysis of some planetary or star movements, and then realized, oh, there's not a planet there at all. I really thought there was. But it does give you an opportunity to step back and say, well, what could I learn from this, and what could I learn about that? And yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Erica, yeah, how it encourages open-mindedness and constant growth. It was very interesting. I mean, there was something that was very, like library opinion, kind of being as a library as being an opinion agnostic organization, like is just looking for like the learning and the growth and being open-minded. And it was a very, very neat message. And I think, he had some pretty good stories that kind of brought them out there. So that was pretty cool. And
I think this was
Yeah.
a little bit later too,
Sure.
but there was something about how when a person who's like kind of higher up in an organization admits that they made a mistake or didn't know something, it what is it? It like encourages other people or makes it okay or something.
Yeah, was that maybe that was in was that might have been one part of when they talked about the movie The Incredibles. I wonder if that was where it was, because there was some things about the high and the other people being paid. But yeah, there definitely was things in there about that, about people that when somebody in leadership admits that they're wrong, admits they're wrong about something, it does allow the person to it allows the organization to grow a little more when it's not just that. And they talked in there one point about not everybody just going to, I thought this was a neat term, the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion. So when you're not just looking toward that, and you're not just looking for that, but that person is actually looking to get more advice from the rest of the team, that it can be more powerful. So yeah, there was a lot in there about leadership and how and how it makes it a little different. So yeah, maybe that was even it. I'm trying to see. I didn't have a note on that, but I do remember him talking about that, about and I think some of that was in some of that discussion of Pixar and how they worked and how they worked a little differently. Some of that was in the next thing one other thing they talked about was task conflict versus relationship conflict. That was mostly the Wright brothers. And I thought that was pretty cool. The debates, not arguments. Yeah. Was that about the actual debate, Carrie? Was that the debate between the guy and the robot? Or was that? Oh, the brothers, Wright brothers. Yes. So yeah, the Wright brothers like to debate. They didn't argue. Yeah. And it was all about task conflict, which would be really interesting to, I don't know that we perform like that. Does anybody have a team that performs like that can argue very constructively without getting into personality, or does it always get into personality? I know we have personality conflicts sometimes, for sure. But yeah, the Wright brothers was very interesting. They argued a lot, or they debated a lot. They did not argue, but they debated a lot, and that helped them grow and helped them solve a lot of problems. And there was a lot of respect there, and they even enjoyed that the other one was going to possibly debate them. So I thought that was a pretty neat story. It'd be a nice thing to find ways to bring that into our teams. Was pretty good. There was one very specific example that I thought might be an interesting one, and that was where they were talking about, and I just have my notes here, they were talking about how to get a message to get college basketball fans to actually show up at the game. So they were talking about how do they promote the game, and when they did sort of regular percentages, or even just like standard sort of promotions, about 77% of them made it to the game. So they thought, well, and this aligns with a lot of stuff that I think we've talked about in the past. Well, what if we try and make a really persuasive message? We get some quotes from the players, we get some quotes from the coaches about, hey, it's home court advantage and we need all your energy on the court and come on out to the game. But when they did that, this isn't the exact one, Anna, but kind of similar to what you talked to. When they did that, actually, they got less people showing up to the games. They thought, oh yeah, the quotes from the players and the coaches, that's going to make it so exciting. But nobody really did that. And the one thing that worked really well was, are you planning to attend? So that was their main message was, hey, this basketball game's coming up. Are you planning to attend? And seeding that in people's minds increased attendance to 85%. So that may be something that would be interesting to try in a marketing message of just giving people the, hey, are you planning on coming to this program? Are you planning on using this service? And it would be really interesting to compare some messages and see. Has anybody done anything like that where they've just dropped in something simple like, or are you planning to attend, or a message like that? Or would anybody like to put? Yeah, Mary, keeping it clear and to the point. Yeah, definitely important. Clear, simple messages. So, and so I thought that, yeah, but I thought there was a couple examples in there that were very much, I think, that you could just pull out, extract, give a try, see if it works. So that one, yeah, about the college basketball fans, if you're looking for something, check that one out. And then there was something, it got into this story about the vaccine whisperer. Anybody have any thoughts about the vaccine whisperer portion of the book? Anybody remember?
I thought that was just such a great example of like coming around to, not like what is it? Not just telling your point, but approaching it from a different angle.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it was really neat. And I'm really curious too about that idea of motivational interviewing now. Like, what could that be? What, how could that work? And I know they cautioned against using it for persuasion, and I think that makes sense. But, very interesting approach to just interview people and kind of lead them into the decision. And then it was the same as the basketball one in a way. It was, let them know that they have the power to make the decision and make the right decision for them and put it in their hands. So that was pretty cool. There was some things in there about straight A students struggling in life. And just rolling through a couple of these these last notes that I have. There's a whole lot about NASA. So, NASA has, obviously a lot of stakes in missions and, and not just NASA, but, International Space Station walks. So there were things there about the, of course, the O-rings that failed and destroyed Challenger, and the foam that fell off and destroyed Columbia. But that was a really interesting point, I thought, was where he said, it's not just asking the question of what you knew, but how did you know? And I feel the same way. Does anybody feel like at their library, people make a lot of assumptions without testing? And has anybody encountered anything where somebody's overcome that? No.
Well, no, I'll just comment on that.
Yeah.
I'm not a librarian, and I've been here now 5 years. And when I first started working here, I was the first marketing person. And even though this is my community library, I mean, I didn't say this in my interview, but I probably hadn't set foot in this library in 25 years.
Yeah.
So I would find out stuff that the library had to offer. I mean, I didn't know what the library had to offer. And everybody was saying, oh, pst, everybody knows. But I'm like, I got news for you. No, they don't. They don't know half of the stuff. So like every day I'm thinking, I'm finding out the stuff and I'm like, oh my God, I'd be taking pictures and social media posts and telling people. And it was like, I mean, we were flooded with different, I mean, the response, I mean, you cannot assume ever that people know. They don't, and they forget. So it's very simple, but people have no clue what your library offers. I'm telling you right now, they don't. And I've talked to my friends and they're like, huh? You have what? I mean, so people have no clue what the library offers. And even though we say it 500 times a day, they don't. So don't ever
Right.
think that people know all the
Yeah.
services you offer, because they don't. And
Yeah.
that was a real eye opener for me. I mean, I'm still, to this day, I'm still learning stuff.
Yeah.
So
Definitely is. There's a
never
lot going on.
assume, never.
Yeah, it's very hard. And I know that happens a lot too, is that we assume that people know things, assume that people, yeah, of course they know. Well, how do they know? Well, I don't know, because, and that's actually another interesting part of this whole equation, Mary, right? So, we assume, yeah, a lot of people do make assumptions that people know. But when you start asking the question, well, how would they know that? How would they know what it was? And this may not have been exactly the point in the book, but it was something that kind of sparked that idea was, how would they know that? And then, well, because we put this out and we put that out, but, how are people, approaching that? And that's the big challenge of trying to find out, when can we get people in that right frame of mind to know what they need to know? So,
Right. And you might have told them one time
you gotta tell them
in
a
one
lot.
channel, but how many people did you reach? 400? And
Right.
how many, really think about it.
Yeah.
And how
And
many
who?
patrons do you have? And they're not going to remember.
Yeah,
So you just have to keep telling them over and over again.
you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And which,
Angela Hirsch did one of her videos was about libraries have to market like Walmart, and
Yes.
right, Walmart like has everything, and
Yeah.
being the one who you can come to for anything, because I do think that's one of the biggest like comments from new employees at our library. I didn't know we had all these things. And it's funny to think that we as the staff are the ones who now are like so aware of all the things and all the programs, and when we want everyone to be.
Yeah, that's very true. Very
We need to
true.
hire everyone. It's the only way.
Yeah. But it's important to, you're right, Lisa. Or Anna. You're right. It's important to, keep that message up, and we are an organization that offers a lot more. So yeah, how do you find ways to keep meeting? And then, like Mary, you're saying, you reach 400 people. We're some or most of them the right people, hopefully. And what can you do to keep on trying to find out how to get to those right people? But yeah, Erica, assuming what people want. Yeah, that is a big one in programming. Assuming what people want without surveying and getting to know the community. Does anybody do some regular surveying and learn? Is anybody doing that? Is anybody doing any surveying of your community? It's a hard thing to do because it's expensive. It's time consuming. Mary, you just sent out a programming survey. How many people, was it an email to like your customers or your patrons or whatever?
We use SurveyMonkey.
Okay.
Can I remember how many people I sent it to? No.
Yeah,
But,
a lot.
we asked, do you come to program? The majority of people do not come to programs.
Yeah.
And that was one of my main points I wanted to make, because our librarians spend so much time on programs, and maybe a third or a quarter of people go to programs. They come to the library for books.
I know.
Mostly.
Yeah, it can make it
So here we
frustrating. Yeah.
are killing ourselves to come up with all these programs, and it is not the reason people come to the library. Now, story time is a different thing.
Yes, children's programs.
Young
different.
families
Yeah.
and children's programming, but programming is not the reason people come to the library. So I just, I try to just keep that in mind. Don't
Yeah.
kill yourself on programming. And you spend a lot of time and money and effort. Summer reading, summer reading, children's programming is a
Sure.
different story. But generally speaking, programming is not the number one reason people come to the library. So you just got to keep that in mind.
I think, yeah, and something that we've been talking about, and I'd be curious if anybody had any thoughts about this. And Lisa, yeah, you send out Net Promoter. Yeah, we send out Net Promoters for Net Promoter Survey, and we do programming at events. So that's great. That can be very helpful. Here's something though: programs are sent out. Surveys are sent out at programs, but I don't know that I've ever seen the results because we're not the programming department. So I really need to see those because I imagine there'd be stuff that would be valuable for us to see too. And let's see, got great discussion over here in the chat. Track patron interaction. College libraries, lower traffic than public. That makes sense. Log everything we're asked for and can't provide. That's pretty good. Is that, Tammy, is that like at the desk? Is that like, what is that called? Isn't that called a something survey?
Well,
no
we
survey or
just use
something?
a tool called Desk Tracker. And so we
Okay.
use it to
No doc.
kind of track how much time we spend on, the no list.
Yeah.
How much we spend time with patrons, more or less than 5 minutes on technology issues. And, is it directions? Is it information? Is it a no list item? Is it an other? But yeah, we use a tool called Desk Tracker. So it's just a click of a button, but
That's cool.
Still, that's how we knew we needed to build study rooms inside the library. And we bought jumbo sized Legos to do it.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. You made study rooms out of Legos?
We did. We have 5 of them now.
Oh my, we need pictures of that, or I'll have to go see.
I
That's
can
awesome.
go for a walk and show you.
Yeah, take a look. That is really cool. But yeah, so yeah, and that, yeah, like Lisa, the no document. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, was the no document. Yeah, the Google form, yeah, could even just be a thing on there. The thing that's tough for that's been difficult for us is getting, so I'm not in public service, so I don't feel like, I have not been successful in having public service start to do that, the no document. Though I really want to know, because I want to know, like for us, for faxing, I want to know what the demand is. I want to know what the demand is. And like you said, for other services that people might be looking for, like notary, I don't know. Once in a while, we hear that people want notary. Is it really worth looking into? Or is it just kind of a casual thing that, there's other solutions that may not be needed. So yeah, Stephanie, you increased and diversified your programming. I see that you're off, so you may be on a call now, but so your door count went up. I would love to hear more about this. So if you come back, I may ask, so what you did for notaries popular for you, Erica? Yeah, I would think it would be. But yeah, Stephanie, looks like Stephanie had a drop off. Too bad. I want to find out more about increased and diversified their programming to find out what went on. So we'll ask her offline and see if we can get some insight on that. Kelly, same, notaries popular there. Yeah, it's not a service we provide. You have 3 notaries, Lisa? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, but it's interesting to know what kind of services there are. And yeah, Mary, something that we've been talking about here, and I'd be interested in knowing anybody else's thoughts about it, is, is for adult programming. Is programming really, do your voters register at your library? They do at ours. They can, well, can they? Yeah, we have like registration drop boxes where people can drop things in. Is that what you're talking about, Lisa? Oh, yeah. Tables around the campus. Oh, like trained registrars. Oh, yeah, we don't have that. That would be interesting. One thing that we're talking about with the voter registration is, wouldn't it be cool if voter registration was also the way that you got your library card? So when you've registered for voting, so we've been talking to our election supervisors for that for a while. It hasn't ever really gotten off the ground, but man, wouldn't that be great if, either your driver's license or your voter registration got your library card. Yeah, county clerk. Yeah, it'd be great to know. But our adult programs, could adult programs, instead of being a product, or, if you look at it as a product in and of itself, could it be a lead generator to get somebody to do something more? I mean, is that how anybody looks at it? Mary, is that how you look at it? Are you looking at programs right now, adult programs, as just kind of, well, if we can get people to come into the programs, great. Or are they a way to, collect email addresses, get leads, get people, possibly using more of the library?
That's very interesting. No, we have never looked at it that way, and we don't require people to sign in or get their names or register. People register, but we don't, like, if you haven't registered and you come, we don't ask you for your library card. We don't ask you to, do you have a library card? Would you? Because this is my new thing. Every meeting I go to, and now I'm like doing physical therapy because I just have my new hip. I ask my physical therapist, do you have a library card? No. Well, you work in this community, even though you don't live here, you can have a card. So what do? I take a card to the next session and I give her a card. Then I say, have you used your card yet, Kelly? No, but I got my welcome email.
Nice.
So I never let it go. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a silly thing, and maybe I've gotten, 10 people to sign up for a card, but I try to really talk about it, but we don't do that at our programs. It's a really good idea. I never thought about it. It's a really good idea.
How many staff do you have at your library, Mary?
Total, probably full time, not counting like all the subs and everything, like 50.
So if each of those 50 people did what you did,
right,
get 500 cards,
But I like that idea of making it like a lead generator possible.
Yeah.
Cross sell. See, I'm like from a banking.
Yeah.
And worked in a bank,
Yep.
and we call it cross-selling. So like when someone comes in to get a checking account, you make sure they get a savings account, a safe deposit box, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, we need to do that in the library.
Yeah.
So you got a library card. Well, now you need to have our app, and now you need to sign up for Libby and Hoopla and la, 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 la.
Yeah.
And the more things they have, the more apt they are to use the library.
Yep. Like the more loans they have and the more accounts they have, the more
they're never gonna leave.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. And adult programming, it is, it is an interesting thing to do. And and that can be an interesting way to look at it. That's what I've been trying to look at it more as that. And so we actually did, now all of our programs, now we don't not let people in if they're not registered necessarily, but we do work to get library cards to them when they come to programs. And we do ask people to register for for programs with their library card. And, it really helps us understand what kind of things people are going to, and then gives us an opportunity to send some follow-up communication directly to them to say, hey, you'd like to come into this author talk. Maybe, here's some other similar read-alikes, or, here's another author talk that we have, or here's some other books that we, you might like to check out. So, yeah, we're trying that, and it's an interesting way. And, I think this was in last month's book, but, people value their email addresses, and if they give it up to you, that means a lot. They really trust you. So, so you can get a lot out of that. But yeah, and Lisa, programming and adult programming is part of your strategic plan. Yeah, and part of your literacy plan. It is important. I mean, there is a lot of value in it, especially depending on what type of programs you put in. So, I mean, the programs in and of themselves certainly can be valuable. It's not that they're not valuable, but some things, it's a good way to, again, build your email list and kind of maintain that communication with everybody. We just have a couple minutes left. Hopefully you enjoyed this little walk through the book today. Anything else? Any last thoughts on Think Again? Somebody mentioned online, and I will agree that wasn't my favorite reader of a book. He was fine, but it wasn't quite as there's been others, so that made it a little distracting a bit. But I still do listen to the books at 1.5 speed, which gives people, even when they're a little less energetic or more flat, 1.5 speed gives them some pep, so it can make it interesting. So if you listen to books, I highly recommend 1.5 speed. Yeah, Erica, if you can get people to show up for programs, then that's what the challenge is. How do we get people to show up for these programs? And, Mary, like you're saying, we just looked at our numbers for, say, the last year. So 77% of the people, and these are overlapping figures, but 77% of the people used, checked out books. And then it was around, I think 30% used public technology. So they use computers, primarily, use computers, but they use public technology or, copying and those kind of things. And I believe it was somewhere around maybe 11%, 7 to 11% attended programs. And that's, and then 3% use meeting rooms. So, relative to those percentages and how much time we spend promoting different things we have and communicating about different things we have, that was a little eye-opening for us. So yeah. But yeah, it's tough to get people to show up for programs. But hopefully maybe some of these books along the way can help develop some messages that can help that. Lisa, I will look at those because my boss had those numbers. I will, let me get back to you and I will tell you how we got to those numbers. But we use Savannah. I think you said you use Savannah, right, Lisa? Yeah, I'll give you yeah, because I'm pretty sure it was all through Savannah data. So, and I'll share it with everybody. I mean, not just Lisa, but I'll share it with y'all so you know what we did. And if you have Savannah or you have the other data, you can use that. Event tracker. Yeah, we do use event tracker. But and Mary, you use it too. Do you have event tracker, Mary? No. Okay. Yeah, we just started event tracker, but even so, I think there still might be some things that I can, let you know how my boss got to calculate those numbers. So it might be interesting to see. But okay, well, before we go, need to choose a winner for next month's book. Next month is Digital Minimalism. I don't have the author's name with me, but it was one that was suggested by Angela. So let's see, how about Tammy? Can you pick a number between 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 8?
5.
1, 2, 3, 4. Keith. So Keith, congratulations. I will get you a copy of Digital Minimalism. And next month we will meet at
27th.
Second, 27th. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't have
just
that
saw
all
it.
pulled up. All right. So the 27th at 3:00, we'll meet there. Please, post things to the group if you have questions. There's some discussions there. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It was great to see you all and talk with you all. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks.
Thank you.